Hi folks, in this video we'll talk about capillary beds. So this is a capillary bed here, right? And so here we have a bunch of capillaries in this kind of web-like network here. In this picture, blood's flowing from our left-hand side to our right-hand side. And in between the gaps, in between these capillaries here, we have all the cells of our tissue here. And you can see all the cells in this tissue here are in very, very close proximity of these blood vessels here. So here we have our arterial here, and we can see that our arterial branch out into many of these capillaries here, right? These are capillaries here, and then they converge back into the venule here, right? And so we can see along the capillary bed here, there are many of these kind of smooth muscle wrappings around the capillaries. These are called precapillary sphincters here. And these precapillary sphincters here control how much blood gets to go through the capillary beds. Is it all or none, basically, right? And so in the picture we see right now, all the precapillary sphincters are open. And so the blood is flowing through the whole capillary bed. All the cells here are getting a good amount of exchange of nutrients and waste. This tissue is getting a lot of blood here. But these precapillary sphincters can close. These capillary sphincters can close and basically have very minimal blood flow through. And so this is what it looks like. When the precapillary sphincters are open, we have a lot of blood flowing through our capillary bed. But when the precapillary sphincters are closed, then a small amount of blood flows through the capillary beds. So one question is, why even do this? Why can't we just have blood flowing through all our capillary beds all the time? It turns out that our total volume of blood is not large enough to fill up all the capillary beds across our whole body. We just don't have that amount of volume. So we have to be a little selective about where the blood is allocated in our circulatory system. If tissue is not being very active, meaning it doesn't have a lot of energy demands, then we would prefer the capillary bed and that surrounding tissue to be something like this, where a very minimal amount of blood is flowing through the capillary bed. However, if the tissue is very active, needs a lot of energy to do whatever it's doing, then we want the capillary beds around that very active tissue to look something more like this here, right? And so these precapillary sphincters here are going to open and close based off what we'll call the metabolic demands of the tissue. If the surrounding tissue is going to be very metabolically active and need a lot of energy, the precapillary sphincters are going to respond to that and open up. If the tissue is not very active, it doesn't need a lot of energy, the precapillary sphincters will recognize that and close up here. And so here we have an example of skeletal muscle and small intestines here. When will the capillary beds be fully engorged with blood? When will the precapillary sphincters be open in these two tissues, right? Well, for skeletal muscles, during exercise, right? When we're physically exercising, we're using our skeletal muscles that are being metabolically active. So the capillary beds in our skeletal muscles will look something like this, right? Because the precapillary sphincters are going to be open to help supply blood to this very active tissue and organ, right? For the small intestine, it's going to be during digestion, right? There's going to be a lot of activity in our small intestines during digestion, and so that's going to require blood flow to the small intestines. It's going to require a lot of blood to go through all the capillaries of our small intestines as well. And then when would you find the capillary beds to be kind of minimized with blood? When would you see the precapillary sphincters, closed in skeletal muscle? Well, during digestion. And when do you see this precapillary sphincters closed in the small intestines? During exercise. It's kind of the opposite, right? It kind of makes sense. When you're active, you're not busy digesting food, and when you're digesting food, you're typically not active, right? And so these are the situations where, for these tissues, capillary beds will be kind of open and closed here. Alright, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, of course, you can shoot me an email. But I'll see you in our next video where we'll talk about portal systems. I'll see you then. Bye.